3 seconds. That's all it took to sell my soul. The kiss tasted like regret and $100 bourbon, sharp, burning wrong. Eliza felt at the moment their lips met, the way the bar's crimson neon seemed to pulse in warning, the way the air turned thick as blood, the way his hand came up to cradle the back of her neck with a gentleness that promised violence. She'd just kissed a man who smelled like gunpowder and expensive cologne, whose mouth curved into a smile against hers like he'd been waiting for this exact moment his entire life. Like she'd just activated a trap she didn't know existed. The Red Room earned its name honestly, every surface bathed in crimson light that made everyone look either beautiful or damned. Eliza had chosen this place to celebrate her divorce, to prove to her friends that she was still fearless, still the woman who'd talked down senators and cleaned up scandals for Fortune 500 CEOs. The dare had been simple: kiss the most dangerous-looking man in the bar. She'd scanned the crowd and found him immediately. He sat alone in a corner booth, a man so large he seemed to swallow the light around him. Elaborate ink crawled up his neck, dragons and demons that moved when he breathed. His black t-shirt stretched across shoulders built for breaking things, not lifting them. A high fade haircut sharp enough to cut glass. Knuckles that told stories her PR brain knew better than to ask about.
Sumin.
She didn't know his name yet. Didn't know he had 17 bodies to his name, or that the tattoo on his neck marked him as head of the one syndicate. Didn't know that every person in this bar paid him protection money, or that the bartender had already texted him the moment Eliza walked through the door. All she knew was that when she approached his table, chin lifted in defiance, his eyes locked onto hers like a scope finding its target. "I was dared to kiss you," she'd said, her voice steady despite the way her pulse hammered. He'd leaned back, studying her the way a predator studies prey, deciding whether to kill it or keep it. Then he'd stood, and she'd realized just how badly she'd miscalculated. He towered over her, close enough that she could see the old scar bisecting his eyebrow, smell the danger that radiated off him like heat. "Then kiss me," he'd said, his voice a low rumble with an accent that turned consonants into weapons.
She did.
And when she tried to pull away after those 3 eternal seconds, his hand tightened on her neck, not hurting, just holding.
Claiming.
"Games have rules, Eliza," he murmured against her ear, and ice flooded her veins because she hadn't told him her name. "And consequences. You just started playing mine." He released her then, sat back down, and lifted his whiskey glass in a mock toast. She should have run. Instead, she stood there in her leather jacket and silver hoops, war paint perfectly applied, and felt the floor drop out from under her life. Because men like him didn't let go of things they wanted. And the way Sumin was looking at her, like she'd just become his favorite problem to solve, told Eliza that she'd walked into this bar a free woman. She wouldn't be walking out as one. Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you. Eliza's phone shattered her sleep at 6 a.m. with a text from her assistant. Emergency.
Get to the office now.
She arrived at her PR firm in yesterday's clothes, her mouth still tasting like bourbon and bad decisions, to find her entire staff gathered in the glass-walled conference room. And sitting at the head of her table, in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car, was Sumin. He looked different in daylight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. More dangerous. The dragons on his neck seemed to breathe as he turned his head, and his eyes tracked her movement across the office like he owned not just the space, but her. "Good morning, Miss Chen," he said, gesturing to the empty chair beside him. Not across from him. Beside him. "We have work to do." Her assistant, Marcus, looked pale. "Eliza, he bought the firm. The sale went through at midnight." The floor tilted. "That's impossible. You can't just." "I can." Sumin slid a folder across the table. "Your previous owners were very motivated to sell. Something about an SEC investigation I made disappear. He smiled, and it was all teeth. Sit down. Please. The please sounded like a threat. She sat. The folder contained photos of a warehouse in Vernon, or what was left of it. Twisted metal, scorched earth, body bags being loaded into coroners' vans. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., 3 hours after she'd kissed him. Gas leak, Soo-min said conversationally.
Tragique accident.
That's the story you're going to sell to every media outlet in Los Angeles by noon. Eliza's PR brain automatically cataloged the scene. Too much damage for a simple leak, blast pattern wrong, bodies positioned like they'd been executed before the explosion. This was a massacre with a match dropped on it. No, she heard herself say. Soo-min leaned back, amused.
No.
I don't cover up murders. I manage reputations, handle crises for legitimate. Legitimate. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and her own voice filled the room. I can bury the audit, but it'll cost you an extra $50,000. A recording from 2 years ago, a conversation with a client about hiding embezzled funds. Illegal.
Career-ending. Prison-worthy.
You've been cleaning up messes for criminals your whole career, Eliza. The only difference is now you work for one who's honest about it. He stood, buttoned his jacket. Press conference at noon. My team will send you the details you need. Make it believable. He paused at the door, looked back. And Eliza? I own you now. The sooner you accept that, the easier this gets. She managed the press conference on autopilot, her mouth forming words about faulty gas lines and regulatory failures while her brain screamed. By the time she stumbled into her apartment that evening, she wanted nothing more than to shower off the day and pour herself into bed. Instead, she found her best friend Kesha waiting on her couch, crying. Jesus, Kesh, you scared me. Eliza stopped. Because Kesha was wearing a Cartier watch that definitely hadn't been on her wrist last week, and carrying a Birkin bag that cost more than Eliza's rent. I'm so sorry, Kesha sobbed. I'm so sorry. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity.
The dare.
The specific dare to kiss the most dangerous man in the bar. Kesha's insistence that they go to the Red Room specifically. The way Kesha had practically pushed her towards Soo-min's table. How much did you owe them? Eliza's voice came out flat, dead. 50,000. Kesha's hands twisted in her lap. I got in deep with some poker games, and these men, they said they'd kill me. Eliza. They said they'd make it look like an accident. So when they offered to clear my debt, if I got you to kiss their boss. Eliza felt something cold settle in her chest. You sold me to the fucking Mafia for 50 grand. They said it was just a kiss. They said he just wanted to meet you, that you'd be perfect for some PR work. Get out. Eliza, please. Get out. The scream tore from her throat. We're done. You're dead to me. Get the fuck out of my apartment. Kesha fled, leaving behind the smell of expensive perfume and cheaper betrayal. Eliza stood in the silence, shaking, and realized she was alone. Completely, utterly alone. Her marriage had ended because Fred was married to his FBI career. Her best friend had traded her for gambling debts. Everyone she'd ever trusted had sold her out. Everyone except the criminal who'd bought her like a prize. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Dinner tomorrow night. Wear something that won't show blood.
S.
She should have been terrified. Should have called the police, the FBI, someone. Instead, she found herself laughing, a broken, bitter sound that echoed off her empty walls. The gala was at the Getty Center, all old money and older power. Eliza wore a black silk gown that cost a month's salary, delivered to her apartment that afternoon with a note. This is armor. Wear it.
S.
Soo-min picked her up in a car that cost more than her college education, looking like Sin in a custom tuxedo that somehow made him seem more dangerous, not less. The bow tie emphasized the thick column of his neck, the tattoos peeking above his collar. "You clean up nice," she said, buckling her seatbelt. "You look like you're going to war." His eyes traveled over her sleek updo, the severe lines of her dress. "Good. Why am I here, Sumin?" "Because someone wants me dead, and I need a witness. Someone smart enough to see what I might miss." He pulled into traffic. "Someone who has everything to lose if I die before I transfer ownership of your firm back to you. You do that. Eventually. If you earn it." He glanced at her. "And if you survive tonight." The gala was a performance, senators and CEOs pretending not to know who Su Min was while taking his donations. Eliza played her part, smiling and networking, until Su Min pulled her onto the dance floor. He moved surprisingly well for a man his size, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers. Close enough that she could feel the hardness of his body, the controlled power in every movement. "You're good at this," she murmured. "My mother insisted I learn," said a man who can dance, can navigate any. His body went rigid. His eyes fixed on something over her shoulder, and in one fluid motion, he spun her, switching their positions. The gunshot sounded like a champagne cork popping. Suman grunted, staggered, but kept his feet. Blood bloomed across his white shirt, spreading like a rose. Screams erupted around them as he grabbed her hand and ran, pulling her through the chaos toward a service exit. "You're shot," she gasped, running in heels. "You need a hospital." Hospital means cops. Cops mean questions. He shouldered through a door into a stark hallway. "I have a place. Can you drive?" She could barely think. "Yes." He tossed her keys as another shot pinged off the wall beside them. They burst into the parking garage, and Eliza's muscle memory took over. She'd grown up with a Marine father who taught her to drive like she was escaping enemy fire. She drove like it now, whipping through Los Angeles streets while Suman bled into her passenger seat, one hand pressed to his shoulder, the other typing coordinates into her GPS. "Why did you do that?" The words came out strangled. "Why did you take that bullet?" He looked at her, his face pale but calm. "Because you're worth more than me right now. You haven't figured that out yet, but you will." The safe house was a nondescript apartment in Koreatown. Eliza half-dragged Suman inside, her dress now ruined with his blood, her hands shaking as she laid him on a couch. "Bathroom," he gritted out. "First aid kit under the sink. Whiskey in the cabinet." She'd stitched up her father after bar fights growing up. Her hands remembered the motions even as her mind reeled, threading the needle, sterilizing with whiskey, her fingers steady as she worked by lamplight. "No anesthetic?" she asked, positioning the needle. "I've had worse." His jaw clenched. "Do it."
She did.
Each pull of thread made him hiss through his teeth, but he didn't flinch, didn't move. Just watched her face with those dark, knowing eyes. "You're good at this," he finally said. "Marine dad." He believed in practical skills. She tied off the last stitch, cleaned the wound. "You should still see a real doctor." "I will. Tomorrow." His hand came up, caught her wrist. "Eliza." She froze, suddenly aware of how close they were. Her kneeling between his legs, her hands on his bare chest, blood and whiskey in the air between them. "You could have run," he said quietly. "At the gala, in the parking garage, any moment of tonight. But you didn't. You would have found me. Maybe. Maybe not." His thumb traced circles on her wrist. "Why didn't you run?" Because she'd spent her whole life running, from her father's violence, from her failing marriage, from the truth of what she really was. A fixer. A cleaner. Someone who made problems disappear. "Because I'm tired," she whispered. "Tired of pretending I'm better than this. Better than you. You are better than me."
No.
She met his eyes. "I'm just better at hiding it." Something shifted in his expression, recognition, maybe. Understanding. He pulled her closer, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. The kiss tasted like copper and whiskey again, but this time she knew what she was choosing. This time, when his hand cupped her neck, she leaned into it. When he pulled her into his lap, careful of his wound, she went willingly. "We're both monsters," she breathed against his mouth. "I know." His hands found the zipper of her ruined dress. "That's why this works." They fell into each other like drowning people finding shore, desperate, inevitable, complicit. And when it was over, when they lay tangled together on that couch in a safe house that smelled like blood and sin, Eliza felt something she hadn't felt in years.
Free.
She woke before dawn, Suman's arm heavy across her waist. Reality crashed back. Someone had tried to kill him. Someone close enough to know he'd be at that gala. Carefully, she extracted herself and found his phone on the table. His passcode was easy. She'd watched him type it a dozen times. She pulled up his texts, his calls, his emails.
There.
A message sent 3 hours before the gala from a contact labeled only J. He'll be in the main ballroom. Sapphire cufflinks.
Don't miss.
Eliza's blood went cold. Someone inside his organization had given the shooter Suman's exact location and identification. She dug deeper, her PR training in crisis management now repurposed for espionage. Financial records, encrypted messages, offshore accounts. It took her 2 hours, but she found the pattern. Money flowing from Suman's accounts to a secondary account, then to a corporation registered to the Sinaloa cartel. And the account was registered to one name, Juno Wan.
His brother.
Suman's younger brother, whom he'd mentioned once during a car ride. The kid he'd raised after their father died, the only family he had left. Find something interesting? Suman's voice made her jump. He stood in the doorway, shirtless, bandaged, utterly calm. Like he'd known she'd do this. Like he'd been waiting for it. "Your brother's stealing from you," she said, her voice steady. "He's the one who set up the hit last night." She expected rage, violence. Instead, Suman just nodded slowly, something ancient and tired in his eyes. "I know," he said quietly. "I was hoping I was wrong. How long have you known?" 6 months. Since our father died. He moved to the window, looked out at the city waking up. "Juna thinks I killed him." Our father had cancer, was on heavy medication. Juna found the empty bottles, thought it was poison. Thought I killed him to take over the syndicate. "Did you?" He turned, met her eyes.
No.
"But would you believe me if I said that?" She studied him. This man who'd bought her company, blackmailed her into service, taken a bullet meant for her. This man who killed people for a living but danced like a gentleman and knew exactly how broken she was because he was just as broken. "Yes," she said. "I believe you." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Gratitude. "Then we have a problem. Because Juno won't stop until one of us is dead. And I don't know if I can kill my own brother." Eliza stood, walked to him, placed her hand over his heart. It beat steady and strong beneath her palm. "Then we find another way," she said. "We expose him. We trap him. We make him stand down. That's what I do, Suman. I fix impossible problems." He covered her hand with his, and for the first time since she'd met him, Suman smiled, a real smile, not the predator's grin. "Then fix this, Eliza-chan. Fix us." She would, because somewhere between that first kiss and this moment, she'd stopped being his victim and started being his partner. And partners didn't run. They won. Fred's number hadn't changed in the year since the divorce. Seeing it flash across her screen at 2 a.m. made Eliza's stomach drop, but she answered anyway. "Liza." His voice still carried that federal agent authority, the tone that once made her feel safe. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, Fred. I know about Su Minwan. I know he bought your company. I know you're in over your head. A pause. I can help you. Witness protection, immunity, a new life.
But you need to meet me.
Tomorrow. Alone. She should have hung up. Should have told Suman immediately. Instead, she said, "Where?" When she did tell Suman the next morning, he didn't look surprised. He pulled up a file on his laptop, surveillance photos of Fred meeting with men Eliza recognized from the warehouse massacre photos. Sinaloa cartel. Your ex-husband isn't trying to save you, Suman said quietly. He's trying to use you. The cartel wants access to my encrypted financial records. They think you have the keys.
Doi.
Not yet. He closed the laptop. But we're going to make them think you do. Eliza studied the photos, Fred shaking hands with cartel lieutenants, Fred accepting an envelope thick with cash. Her ex-husband, the man who'd lectured her about ethics, about right and wrong, about staying on the correct side of the law. He always said I was the morally compromised one, she said, her voice bitter. Turned out he was just better at hiding it. Suman's hand found hers across the table. We're going to destroy him. But first, we need to make you look vulnerable. Make Juna and the cartel think you're alone, exposed. Bait they can't resist.
How?
His smile was cold. Trust me. The press conference was held on the steps of her firm, his firm now, with a dozen cameras and twice as many reporters. Eliza stood to the side in yesterday's clothes, makeup smudged, playing the part Suman had directed. He stood at the podium in a pristine suit, his face carved from stone. Effective immediately, Eliza Chin is terminated from her position. An internal audit has revealed embezzlement of company funds totaling over $200,000. The lie hit like a physical blow, even though she'd known it was coming. Miss Chen's access to all accounts and systems has been revoked. We are cooperating fully with law enforcement. He didn't look at her. That's all. Mr. Wan, is it true you were romantically involved with Miss Chen? No comment. Cold. Dismissive. Security, please escort Miss Chen from the premises. Two men in suits, Suman's men playing their parts, grabbed her arms. She fought just enough to look authentic, let them drag her down the steps while cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. They threw her into the street. Actually threw her, and she hit the pavement hard enough to scrape her palms. The rain had started, turning the October afternoon gray and miserable. She looked up at Suman through the downpour. His face was blank, emotionless. A stranger's face. Don't come back, he said, loud enough for the microphones. Then softer, just for her, his lips barely moving. 2 days. Stay sharp. She picked herself up, limped away from the cameras, and felt their trap snap shut around their enemies like teeth. Fred chose an abandoned warehouse in Vernon for their meeting.
Of course he did.
Federal agents always thought they were clever, picking isolated locations, not realizing they were just predictable. Eliza wore a wire thinner than a hair, tucked beneath her bra. She carried a USB drive in her pocket, empty except for a virus that would brick any computer it touched. And she wore the truth on her face. Exhaustion, fear, desperation. All of it real. None of it for the reasons Fred would think. He emerged from the shadows right on time, still dressed like an agent even though he'd sold his soul to the cartel. Liza, you look like hell. You would too if your life just imploded on live television. She held up the drive. This is everything. Suman's financial records, his accounts, his entire operation. Encryption keys, passwords, everything. Fred's eyes gleamed. How did you get this? He trusted me. Before he threw me away like garbage. She let her voice crack. I want immunity, Fred. And I want you to destroy him.
Can you do that?
He moved closer, hand outstretched. Give me the drive. She pulled it back. Immunity first. In writing. Liza. In writing or I walk. His hand dropped to his gun. Not drawing it, just resting there. You're not in a position to make demands. Aren't I? She smiled, cold. You need this drive more than I need immunity. The cartel is paying you to deliver it. If you go back empty-handed, what do you think they'll do to you? Rage flashed across his face. You always were too smart for your own good. And you were always a hypocrite. All those speeches about integrity while you were on the take. When did it start, Fred? Before we got married? During? Shut up. I bet it was before. I bet that's why you married me, a PR fixer, someone who knew how to clean up messes, someone useful. Did you ever actually love me, or was I just... The slap came fast, snapping her head sideways. She tasted blood. I said shut up. He grabbed her wrist, yanked the drive from her hand. You want to know the truth? You were always a criminal, Liza. You just pretended to be legitimate. At least I'm honest about what I am. Are you? She met his eyes. Because right now you're about to plug that drive into your phone and brick it. And in about 30 seconds, this warehouse is going to be surrounded by very angry people who don't appreciate traitors. His face went white. What did you? The doors exploded inward. Suman's men poured in, weapons drawn, moving with military precision. Fred reached for his gun, but Eliza was faster. Years of her father's training kicked in, and she swept his legs, dropped him hard. She stood over him, breathing heavy, blood from her split lip dripping onto his shirt. You're right about one thing, Fred. I am a criminal. But at least I chose to be one. You just got caught. Then the second wave hit, not Suman's men, but cartel soldiers, and the warehouse became a war zone. Gunfire erupted like thunder. Eliza dropped behind a crate as bullets tore through metal and concrete. Suman materialized beside her, pulling her deeper into cover, his body shielding hers. They knew, she gasped. Juna told them. I know. His gun was already out. Stay down. But the firefight ended as quickly as it started, not because anyone won, but because a voice cut through the chaos. Enough. Juna stepped into the warehouse, and both sides' guns lowered. He looked like a younger version of Suman, but where Suman's violence was controlled, Juna's was wild. Unhinged. Hello, brother. Juna's gun was pointed at Eliza's head. You've caused me a lot of trouble. Suman stood slowly, hands visible. Juna, we can talk about this. Talk. Juna laughed, the sound broken. You killed our father, and you want to talk. I didn't kill him. He had cancer. The medication. Lies. Juna's hand shook. I saw the bottles. I saw him getting weaker. I know what you did. Then you know wrong. Suman took a step forward. Around them, guns stayed trained, but no one fired. This was family business. Sacred. Untouchable. Father was dying. The cancer was in his bones, his blood. He had 3 months. The medication was palliative care, not poison. You're lying. I have his medical records. Hospital bills. Doctor's notes. Everything. Another step. He made me promise not to tell you. He didn't want you to see him weak. Didn't want you to watch him die. Something flickered in Juna's eyes. Doubt, maybe. Hope. Then it hardened again. Even if that's true, you still took everything. The syndicate, the power, the respect. You left me with nothing. I left you with your life. With a chance to be something other than this. Suman's voice broke. Juna, please. You're my brother. My family. Don't make me choose between you and her. Juna's gun pressed against Eliza's temple, cold and absolute. Choose then. Your family or your whore. Time crystallized. Eliza saw it in Suman's eyes, the calculation, the agony, the impossible decision. Saw him realize that Juno wouldn't stop, wouldn't listen, wouldn't back down. That this would only end one way.
I'm sorry, Sumin whispered.
The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Juno stumbled backward, a bloom of red spreading across his chest. His gun clattered to the floor. He looked at Sumin with betrayed, dying eyes. You chose her, he gasped. You chose.
He fell.
Didn't get up. Sumin stood frozen, gun still raised, his face carved from grief. Around them, both sides lowered their weapons. The cartel soldiers smart enough to know when a war was lost, Suman's men closing ranks around their leader. Eliza moved to Sumin, took the gun from his shaking hand, and held him as he broke. They left Fred alive.
Barely.
Tied up in that warehouse with enough evidence of his cartel connections to bury him for life. By the time Eliza called it in to the FBI, she and Sumin were already at the port of Los Angeles, watching shipping containers being loaded onto freighters bound for Korea. The raid is coming, Sumin said quietly. His eyes were empty, hollowed out. My sources say within the hour. Federal agents, DEA, ATF. They're going to take everything. No, they're not. Eliza pulled out her phone and dialed a number she'd found in Fred's files. A number that connected directly to FBI Director Cole. He answered on the second ring. Who is this? Someone who has video evidence of your deputy director accepting bribes from the Sinaloa cartel. Someone who has bank records showing your office has been compromised for over 2 years. Someone who can send all of it to the Washington Post in the next 5 minutes. She paused. Or you can call off the raid on the port of Los Angeles, and we can all forget this ever happened. Silence. Then, that's extortion. That's survival. You have 60 seconds to decide whose career ends today, mine or yours. She could hear him breathing, calculating. The raid is off. But if you ever... You'll never hear from me again. Provided we never hear from you. She hung up. Sumin was staring at her. You just blackmailed the FBI. I just saved your empire. She looked at him. This man who'd killed his own brother to protect her, who'd taken a bullet for her, who'd seen the worst of what she was and wanted her anyway. Our empire. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. I killed him. I killed Juna. I know. I'm a monster. I know that too. She tilted his face up, made him look at her. We're both monsters, Sumin. We're both complicit. We're both damned. But at least we're damned together. He kissed her then, hard and desperate, tasting like grief and gunpowder and the future they were choosing. Together, he whispered against her mouth. King and queen. Of ashes and blood. Is there any other kind? 6 months later, the Red Room reopened. They'd gutted it, rebuilt it, turned it into something new. Still bathed in crimson light, but now the VIP section had bulletproof glass, and the bar served champagne that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The city's elite came to drink and dance and pretend they didn't know who really owned the place. Eliza stood at the balcony rail in a dress that cost a fortune and a reputation that scared senators. Her PR firm, legitimately hers again, handled crisis management for half the corporations in Los Angeles. Below her, people danced and drank and played their little games, unaware that the woman watching them had federal agents on speed dial and bodies in her past. Suman's arms wrapped around her waist from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Regrets.
She thought about it.
About the woman she'd been 6 months ago, celebrating her divorce, taking stupid dares, believing she was better than the criminals she served. That woman was dead, killed by a kiss and reborn in blood. No, she said honestly. Only that I didn't buy your company sooner. His lips brushed her neck, right over her pulse. You're terrifying when you're unleashed. You're the one who taught me. I just showed you what was already there. He turned her to face him, and in the red light, he looked like what he was, a devil, a king, a killer. You were always going to be this, Eliza. I just gave you permission. Below them, someone shouted her name. A client, probably, or a reporter, or another person who wanted something from her. 6 months ago, she would have run, would have hidden. Now she smiled, sharp, predatory, unafraid, and raised her champagne glass in acknowledgement. She'd been dared to kiss the most dangerous man in the bar, and she'd done it. She just hadn't known that the most dangerous thing in that room would turn out to be her. Eliza Chun, queen of the underworld, leaned into her king's embrace and watched her city burn beautiful in the crimson light. And for the first time in her life, she felt exactly where she belonged. In the red room where it all began. Where games had rules and consequences. Where 3 seconds had changed everything. Where she'd sold her soul and found it was the best deal she'd ever made. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I love you all.